Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I'm here today to talk more about the escaping the rat race and have we really escaped it? And what led me to do this video was I had the question come on the video that we did maybe about 2 years ago, Patrick and I did together on escaping the rat race. And someone said, well, as busy as you are, have you really escaped the rat race? And I'll give you a simple answer to that, and that is yes. And then I'll explain why. Now, I think some of this comes back to each individual's definition of what is the rat race. Now, let me start by explaining how I view the rat race, as we often call it. And that is, you very rarely ever get to be home. And when you do, you're usually just eating dinner, cleaning up, and sleeping, and that's it. And there's very little time for family because you got to get up early, usually eat a fast food breakfast or some cereal, and that's it. You never get to have a good home-cooked breakfast in the morning. Grab your coffee, commute to work, spend all day working for the man or working for somebody else just to commute back home again. And if you have kids, you're having to put them in daycare while you're at work. And then you got to come home and just start the whole thing all over again. And it's not like living a more self-sufficient lifestyle or not having to work outside the home for somebody else means that we don't have a set pattern that we try to follow, because having a basic schedule is also going to help you keep things on track. However, we also have the freedom to change our schedule as needed anytime we want to. So maybe we had planned on making skin cream and lip balm and baking up some homemade bread and whatever it is that we'd planned on doing that day, but something came up, a family member in need, or maybe your kids needed to bring the grandchildren by because they had an emergency and they needed someone to watch them. Well, being able to do things from home and being out of that rat race that's happening outside the home gives me the freedom to do that. That does not mean I'm not a very busy person. I've always been a very busy person for as long as I can remember. Even as a teenager, I'd be in school all day. I would go to ballet classes, or I would have choir practice, or I would have musical rehearsal or dance rehearsal. I didn't have a car the whole time I was in high school, so a lot of times I was riding my bicycle to ballet class and so on and so forth. So that's just me. I think I would just wither up and die if I didn't have something to keep me busy. Now, yes, my life has been busier in the past couple of years than it ever was when I was homeschooling my 2 boys and being a stay-at-home mom and running a dance school and a martial arts school all together. I am busier now than when I was doing all that. But that doesn't mean that I haven't escaped the rat race, at least not in my personal opinion. Now, Patrick, he has had to, up until a few years ago, he has had to work outside the home for somebody else in a very stressful job. And this is bad, hard stress, not the kind of more positive stress you get from just staying busy and having a lot on your plate like I do. There is a difference. And Patrick has actually been very busy, probably busier now than he ever was, but he's happy doing what he's doing. He's far less stressed out, and he has the control to say yes or no to anything. And that goes with me too. As I realized my stress level was building because I was trying to keep up on skirt orders and apron orders and all the other things that I put on my store and taking care of the grandbaby and keeping up on YouTube, it hit me again that it's time for me to start cutting back. Like last year, before the baby was even born, I stopped making soaps for the store because I seen the stress levels coming up. I have the freedom to do that. I don't have some boss telling me, well, you have to keep making soap and you have to keep doing this and doing that. Plus, I'm going to go ahead and pile this on top of you. No, I have the freedom to say, no, I'm not going to do it anymore because my time is precious and so is my health. That is how I define it. I do believe that those people who are still out there working in such conditions where they have to work for somebody else in an office building or whatever, and they have to keep a strict 9 to 5 schedule, and they don't have any type of fluidity or the ability to be able to change their schedule at will. I believe a lot of them have this misconception that being more self-sufficient and working from home means that you're lazy and you don't do anything, or that you just have this easy life and you can just sit around and drink iced tea all day and put your feet up. Well, that's a pretty big misconception. It's the same misconception that a lot of people that work outside the home have about stay-at-home moms who raise their own children, who make their own meals from scratch. That mom is not only she's the wife, she's the mother, she's the nurse, she's the teacher, she's the caretaker, she's the cook, she's the baker, she's the seamstress, and all the many things. And to me, yes, that's busy and that's natural, and that's the way I believe God has created at least me to be, and the desire I always had growing up. And I didn't expect that I'd be sitting around watching soap operas and eating bonbons all day, and nor did I have the desire to do such a thing, because I never liked soap operas, and I don't even think I've ever had a bonbon, for crying out loud. So I think we got to get past this mentality. So exchanging one type of busyness for another, you might still be just as busy, but how happy are you? How fluid are you? How much more satisfied are you in that position that you're in? If we can cut out all the negative stress, or at least most of the negative stress in our life, if we can get out of debt and be the ones that call the shots for our own selves and our own future, rather than having to work for somebody else that's going to do all that for us, I find that liberating. I find that escaping the rat race. So yeah, we're still working hard. We're still doing what we can to help bring in income from various different sources, because just like everyone else, we still have bills. Some people talk about how they live entirely off their own farm. I would find it hard to believe that there's anyone that's completely an island that does not depend on somebody else. Now, maybe you can grow all of your own produce, but do you also grow all of your own meat? Okay, well, maybe you do all of that, but do you make all your own textiles? Do you harvest and mill up all your own lumber? Do you collect rainwater, and that is your sole water source? For us, it's not our sole water source, but it's the only source we use for consumption. Do you rely solely on off-grid methods for electricity and for heating and cooking? Or like us, are you partially off-grid? Do you have solar panels and battery banks? Are these things that you have to purchase and then keep up on in order to keep them in good shape? So we can't fully be entirely self-sufficient. And just because we have to purchase items from somebody else or barter for items over here, in my personal definition, being able to do away with having to work for someone else, but going into business for ourselves and still doing the bartering and trading and buying and selling, that's escaping the rat race to me. And to me, a part of that too, and this isn't going to apply to everyone, escaping the rat race is getting out of debt. Because getting out of debt, or at least limiting your bills down to the absolute necessities, and is also escaping the rat race, because then we don't have to work so hard if we don't want to be able to pay the bills. Now, the reason Patrick and I keep working hard isn't just for the sake of paying the bills. We could cut back on a lot and still have enough to pay the bills and to get by. But we're still trying to save up to either buy another piece of property, something bigger and more out of town, or continue to invest in a growing business that Patrick and our oldest son are working on together. So, some of that, and we'll talk more about that probably in other videos, but I have talked about investments, wise investments, and I'll link to that video down below, as well as the one that Patrick and I did on escaping the rat race, and the one we did about becoming debt-free, because these all come together. And also, learning skills is very important to be able to escape that out there and bring it into here where you can call your own shots, and you can pick and choose what you want to do, what you want to sell, what kind of work you want to do, and so on. When I was teaching dance and martial arts, I always wondered, if I get to the point when I decide to retire from that particular business, what else could I do to earn an income from home? And I had a lot of different thoughts, and I was making skirts and crocheting items and selling them at the time just locally. Wasn't making a lot of money, but it was a little bit of side money. But I never dreamed then that I would be able to get to a point where I could make and sell my goods right here from home and actually make enough money to live on. And we could do that, and we have done that right here, but probably not as much now because I've cut back on a lot of stuff. And by the way, yes, I'll get back into the skirt making, but that's not going to happen again until after the wedding's over with. And as I've said before, as far as custom orders, that'll be depending on what people are interested in, because I have fabrics I need to work through because I have a big, huge stash of fabrics. Anyway, that's a little side note. But anyway, back then, I think a lot of times that's the other thing is a lot of people think, well, either A, they don't have any skills. Well, you can develop skills, you can create skills, or you can find other areas, even if it's, designing web pages or whatever it is, depending on your natural skill levels, you can expand upon those and start creating your own business based on what you want to do and what your skill level is. Like the making soap, it took me years to finally get over the fear of making soap. And when I did, I had so much fun doing it. I thought, well, I better start selling it because I keep making soap and I'm gonna have all this soap. And I didn't think that would do as well as it did, and it did. They sold great. There's always people out there needing soap, and it's a consumable item. And I started doing that like real soon after learning how to make soap. Like after I made maybe 2 batches, I already had people wanting to buy my soap. You may be surprised. But you also have to figure out where's going to be your reach. That's the one thing about a lot of your social media. One thing about Facebook is we're most likely to have a lot of friends that are local to us or family that we can reach. So if you're selling your own eggs and some live plants, that might be something you're going to want to do locally. And so using the Facebook marketplace and just advertising on your own profile, you might be surprised at how many people will be interested in some of the things that you have to sell. And again, you can do that right there from home. And I'll link to another video that we have a special little barter cabinet that Patrick built for us, and I'll link to that video. And that's what we use for selling our various goods. We can put the items in there. If people are going to barter, they'll just put their stuff in there and trade us straight across, or they pay us cash in our special little cash box. So there's many ways that you can set it up. It's a matter of being creative. Really think about what is your definition of escaping the rat race, and what is your definition of being self-sufficient. And if you are still in that lifestyle where you're working outside the home and you're having to commute back and forth 5 days a week, and you rarely have time with your family, and you're thinking about being, well, I'd like to have more time with family, I want to escape the rat race too. That doesn't mean you're just going to be able to sit around and run to the beach every day. You're still going to have a life to live. You're still going to have to find a way to earn an income to pay the bills. But the blessing about that, again, is you get to call your own shots, make your own schedule, change your schedule as needed, and you can do all this with your family right there around you. And so you're still getting quality family time. Your kids and or grandkids are learning right along with you as you're doing these things, because every moment in your life becomes a teaching moment, and that's the best way to homeschool kids. Less time should be spent on actual book work than the actual physical real life learning. That's where your kids and grandkids are going to get their most important form of education. That's going to get them through life and learning things like common sense, which is not typically taught in our public school systems anymore. Please put down below, what are your definition of being self-sufficient and or escaping the rat race? What do you think about that? Have you escaped that lifestyle and found something better? How busy has it kept you leaving that lifestyle and working from home? Are you happier? Are you less stressed out. And when I say stress, I'm talking about the negative stress, not the good stress, because there's always going to be stress. We all have stress, no matter who we are. There's just the good and bad, and then there's too much of it. So even if there's too much good stress, there comes that point you got to cut back, just like I've had to do on a lot of things. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.